I am getting better.
Big screen. Will it mess things up, Patrick, if we wait for Krista, or
Nope.
should we wait for Krista?
We
So
can
that
give her another minute. Couple minutes. She's going online.
she said she was gonna go virtual. And she got the email. Yeah. Quiet. All right, let's go.
All right.
I got the interpreter coming to do my Facebook class. I don't want
Got
to
it.
be too late.
Just need a motion to start our policy workshop at 5:50 or 6 o'clock, right on the nose. Colleen, the second.
Second.
Gabby, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Here, we stand for the pledge of pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so first one's an easy one. I talked to you about the old outdated cell phone policy, and it even mentioned pagers and beepers and everything else on it, PDAs. So Mr. Montoro was able to switch us over to T-Mobile in a state contract, which saved money to begin with. And some things now that they're using the phone for that they didn't in the past is, so we have a maintenance worker and he says, I need a piece of plumbing to fix the sink. He can get on and start getting quotes and looking it up and doing that kind of thing rather than waiting until he gets back or see if it's in stock or we have an open account at Home Depot or not, that kind of thing. So this has been a kind of a scaled down one. I had shared last time that we looked at like Waynesville and some other school districts and what they're doing. And basically it gives us the right to charge employees if we feel that they are misusing it too much. But if we're requiring them to have a phone, it makes sense to provide them with that. And it's a much scaled back. The assistant superintendent for finance, Tony, will maintain a cell phone issued list for the district as well. So who's coming in and who's going out. And basically 5322 goes from being 2 pages to 1 page. And we just don't have it listed here because if, like for example, Chris Prester's position didn't exist a couple years ago, and now we decided, or he, says I'm doing a lot of this work at home or when I'm at school, and we would determine him to need one, we could just add it. So we can take turn. If you reviewed it, if you have questions, we can talk about it. I can put it in for the next meeting to approve it, or we could do it now because it's not a big, huge change. There's not a lot of controversy. It doesn't involve testing or parents or kids or anything like that. But I want you to feel like you've had time to review it and ask questions before we approve.
My last question was just how many devices do we have issued under that for the district?
You can figure that out. pretty easy.
Yeah, let me look. I should.
I just didn't know if we were talking like 20 or 50 or.
No, not 50. It might be getting close to 20.
Yeah, but, yeah, because we added some for transportation for the buses. They're just little flip phones. There's 5 of those. I can get the exact amount, but it's probably more like 15 counts.
Alright.
It's all state contract.
No, I like where that was.
Yeah,
I was
it's
just curious the actual
unlimited, the flip phones are like $12 a month. And then the iPhones are $24.
Not bad at all.
And it's unlimited. I mean, the plans have changed so much since when this policy first went into effect. I think they're, the changing market, but now
If I pay per minute,
it's
data, text, all separate.
yeah. You're paying a lot more on hotspots, I'll tell you that. That's the problem.
Supply and
I gotta-
demand, supply
Yes,
and
the
demand.
cell phones are at least of our worries.
Do we want to vote on it tonight? We good, or we want to wait?
Erica and, Eric, is Krista in yet?
Not yet, she uploaded, I guess.
She's joining now.
Perfect. Well, there we go.
Yeah, I'm okay with voting tonight if everybody else is.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Hi, Krista.
You want to summarize it real quick?
Yeah. Couldn't you hear us?
Krista, can you hear us? Yes.
Okay. So in the packet, we just reviewed the scaled down cell phone policy. And we were just talking about if we would want to hold it off until next meeting or vote for it today. Eric had just said he's okay voting on it tonight. We basically, being myself and Tony, have say over who gets them. And they're all off the state contract. And we have about 15 to 20 phones in the district currently. Sounds good.
Yes.
All right, so we just need a motion to adopt the new policy of 5322, the revised version.
So,
All right, so Gabby, second.
second.
Colleen? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries.
Okay. We got all- okay. All right, the next policy, not so nice and neat, one pager, right? We're moving into something else. So I asked Katie, and when I'm working with Katie, and actually Katie offered to come to help me with this. So we appointed Katie Smith and Greg Burgess, our Title IX officers. There's a lot of changes that have come out. We use Dr. Elizabeth Bradley for our training for this, for the staff that we have to do every year. And then she's been working with Greg and Katie offline, so to speak, or in a private sort of up to speed thing. And BOE sent out a suggested policy, which is very long and covers a lot. And there's a lot to be fixed in it yet. So this isn't a vote today because we have to put in timelines to respond when someone has it. If there's an investigation and who will do the investigation, because it won't always be internal staff. It might be like labor relations from BOE that does it. And there's a nice flow chart here that kind of explains it, and I'll let Katie kind of hit on the high spots that you want to point out to them, and then what we'll do is we'll highlight what we're inputting to this as we go through it, but we anticipate it'll be another month before we're ready for it to be even considered for approval.
Sounds good. So why the Department of Ed revised Title IX and added different language and also regulations. And these regulations from the Department of Education carry the full force of the law. So in the past, there's been guidance regarding sexual harassment claims and how to handle those in educational institutions, but it's been just that guidance, whereas these new regs by the Department of Ed, full force of law. And so it's really important that all educational institutions from K on up are adhering to these regulations. So implications for us, policy adoption. So as Greg just said, Erie 1 has put out what will be a required policy. This is the sample for us to start taking a look at, as well as training and roles associated with the grievance process, which we'll start to touch on this evening. And then from a district perspective as well, how does that impact the training that we're providing for all employees in the district regarding sexual harassment and how that falls as part of sex discrimination under Title IX? And then the last piece is also the notification processes that the district needs to have in place. So from things that are publicized on the district website, as well as things that are part of maybe our district calendar or our policy handbook, what is the impact there as far as additional layers that now need to be included because of the regs that have been updated. So this they were adopted in May, became part of what now needs to be practiced this August, and now BOCES and the state are working with all of the districts to go through the policy adoption process. So if you take a look,
They have the flow chart, or where you want it?
yeah, why don't, actually, before we head to the flow chart.
No, we haven't been.
Yeah, okay, well, what do you want to start with?
Okay. So if we want to take a look at the actual policy, do you have the drafted policy?
It's in our,
It's in your packet.
It's, yeah, so, I can run up and print those while you're talking, just so you can have it, because it's online, so the people at home probably can get to it easier than I can.
Okay.
Unless, Patrick, you want to open it.
And I'll just do summary. So it's 20 pages, so you'll see why
Yeah.
Mr. Wojtyla is saying we'll
There's a
probably
light reading.
we'll need some multiple reads on this.
It's 20 pages,
20
and, it has a lot of blanks in it.
It does.
Because of what, so it's kind of like pulling a tree to show it to you.
All right, what number?
No, the one that's in the board docs. It should have been-
Yeah, it wasn't.
Okay, this is the only one I have in the board.
Okay.
That's okay. So as far as the flow chart itself, this is really relevant to the actual grievance process. And so one of the major updates as far as Title IX and the regulations itself is the definition of sexual harassment. And you'll see in the policy when you have a chance to read it word by word, it goes through the actual definition of sex discrimination, where sexual harassment falls within sex discrimination, and then what the district's response needs to be to that. So it clearly defines actions that constitute sexual harassment. So what this flow chart helps us to articulate as a district is once there's a report that is made, first of all, that report can be made to any employee of the district. So that is one of the major changes as far as actual knowledge, is any employee of the district having knowledge of sexual harassment and the need to then report that to someone in authority to then move that process along as far as doing the initial investigation into it. And so that's really important, something that needs to be continually stressed in our trainings that Dr. Bradley does for everybody within the district, to make sure that we're all aware of what our responsibilities are as an employee of the district. So when you notice that, when you take a look at this flow chart, level 1 is our response. So that notice of event, again, that actual knowledge, that is the impetus for action on behalf of the district. The incident report, this is important as well because it's any employee, can be verbal or written, and this is all clearly delineated in the drafted policy from BOCES. Also important to note for us, being a K-12 institution, is that the parent or guardian can act on behalf of the child as far as a report or a formal complaint. So that's where you see the incident report. Also, our obligation to notify the parent if it is someone else making us aware or reporting an incident that involves their child. Then from there, that launches us into the inquiry investigation. So that's where there's additional fact finding. There may be written statements, there's going to be interview notes and guidance, and also moving through a criterion that Dr. Bradley trained both myself and Greg in. One of the major points within these regulations and policy is that as a Title IX coordinator or officer, if it gets to the point where there's going to be a formal investigation or a formal complaint, that's where the complaint is written. It's signed by the complainant or the person acting on behalf of the complainant, such as the parent or guardian that I referenced. Or it could be myself or Mr. Burgess as Title IX officers after we've moved through an inquiry investigation. If we find that this is leading down a pathway where it's meeting the criteria of being sexual harassment, which falls now under sex discrimination, then we would be writing the formal initiation for a formal investigation, which then takes us down to the formal investigation bucket, which is where we're going to find most of the major changes that you'll see delineated in the policy. Right now, there aren't any accompanying regulations to go with the district policy for this, because within the 20-page policy itself, the regulations are already tucked in. So what you'll see is from launch of the formal complaint all the way through the conclusion of the investigation and the decision maker's decision, every step is outlined. Okay, and so within that, there are some look-fors that we'll all be looking at, you'll all be looking at as far as input regarding time frames. So for example, in the past during an investigation, it was not required that once those investigative components were collected, so interviews, recordings, whatever it might be, what have you, the evidence, it was never required that both parties receive that evidence at the same time, have the chance to review the evidence and write their own responses or ask questions. Now, that is written as part of the regulation for if it's a formal complaint regarding sexual harassment that's being investigated. Another example, the time turnaround that both parties have to ask and answer questions of each other has never been regulated and mandated as part of an investigative process. So it's quite delineated as far as who does what. From the district's perspective, it becomes, once there's a formal complaint falling under Title IX, myself as the Title IX coordinator, Mr. Burgess is another Title IX coordinator, we would not be typically the lead investigators into that. That's when, as Mr. Waitilla referenced, we would be reaching out to a third party for assistance within taking the lead in that investigation. We would still act as a liaison, because clearly we're here within the district. We still oversee the process as it moves through the investigative procedures. We would be making sure that it's adhering to the policy and the steps that are outlined within the policy, but the investigator is the investigator. That investigator, once that person has completed the investigation, moved through all of the processes aligned with the time frames as far as both parties, the complainant and the respondent, having time to ask questions, to review things, then the decision maker writes an incomplete investigative report, which again, both parties have, believe it's 10 days to review and write responses before then turning over to the decision maker. The decision maker cannot be the investigator. The decision maker is also not the Title IX officer or coordinator. So within a district, typically your decision maker would be your superintendent or your director of personnel, but it is someone outside. So what they've layered in are multiple roles when it's a formal complaint of sexual harassment under Title IX. There are implications for other policies that refer to sexual harassment or refer to discrimination or anti-harassment. So after we take a look at the adoption of this new policy, and actually simultaneously, we'll be looking at policies like our non-discrimination policy. There's also two policies that are specifically already written for sexual harassment, one for students, following in the student section of policy, and one for district personnel. So we'll need to take a look at those to make sure that, one, any grievance processes that are relevant to sexual harassment and definitions that define sexual harassment are in line with the new regulations. So there will be some minor tweaking of verbiage across probably at least 4 different policies that we're in.
It's a big job.
I was just gonna say,
Yeah,
it sounds
complex,
very
yeah.
complex.
Yeah. But for a good reason,
Yeah,
because
right,
before
yeah.
now, again, like we say, we end up in this position because there are places that don't follow anything or just ignore it. So having this sort of really a roadmap is what they're providing for people on what to do and how to do it. But we do have some input in it, and then like she said, we have bits and pieces in other policies that can't contradict it. You know, you have to go with the most current. So, so we'll be doing a lot of work on that. I will make sure Debbie sends it to you, just so you can see the draft. You'll see a lot of bold, insert district, preference throughout it, because that's what they're leaving us with, where we have to come up. 90% of that is timeline. There's not a lot we can change when it comes to the investigation and the steps that have to happen. But there are some other little things in there as far as when they make reference to other things besides sexual harassment as well. So,
And preponderance of evidence.
yeah. questions so far. I mean, we'll see more of it. I'll have it. It'll be good reading for you over Thanksgiving. Dig into it. Thank you, Katie. Very thorough.
Thank you.
Yes, we're in good hands with Ms. Smith and Mr. Burgess. And I have to say, Mrs. Johnson's been a guiding force for them as well as Dr. Bradley. So I think if anything, we'll have a very strong, confident policy at the end.
Greg, if I could ask a question, this is Krista. I just on some verbiage, and I know that this is just a template. I think that it's on page 10. Well, first before that, on the roadmap or the flow chart at the
Yeah.
top, I had a question at the end of level 2. If it's determined by the investigators that the harassment, discrimination, or bullying is not merited, is there a protocol, or will there be a protocol for an appeal?
So to answer that question, if it's a formal complaint of sexual harassment that makes it to the formal investigation process, at the very end, after the decision maker makes his or her decision, there is an appeals process, and it is outlined within the policy itself. And I can find that page for you.
She's backing up to
For prior-
level 2.
Right.
Prior to that, right now, there is not an appeals process. Typically, those fall within district code of conduct violations typically, or district code of conduct in conjunction with discrimination based on whether it be race, religion, one of the other protected classes, not sexual harassment. So there is a grievance process, but there is not a delineated appeals process within any other policies.
Okay. Thank you. And I have this truly is verbiage. It's on Form F of the incident checklist, and it's number 45. I was curious to know what, it says documented why the response was not deliberately indifferent. What does deliberately indifferent mean?
I'm sorry, Chris, I apologize. Where are you?
So she's in the checklist. It's 2 pages long. It goes to 48. So number 45 is documented why the response was not deliberately indifferent. That's a good one.
That's a good one for me to find out for you, Krista.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will find out. I'll get back to Greg and then he can communicate with you.
Thank you. That would be great just for my
Thank you.
information.
Because this is part of the checklist for, I think I have a guess. Yeah. So I'm wondering, deliberately indifferent, like why the response was. I think I just want to make sure, and we could probably clear it up that it wasn't like a deliberately false claim.
Okay. All right.
But I'll double check with deliberately, because indifferent is the one that's.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Any other quick comments on it? We'll send it out to you again and make sure you get to see everything. All right, so that'll be back. You'll be hearing from us more. You'll get sick of that 10 minutes. Okay, so we got since we went into COVID in the new school year, and every school district around gave out more devices, so students in hybrid and remote had a device, people started saying about, well, what are the rules for the device? And we had an old policy, and there's some new policies for how to use it. And we found out quickly that when something gets updated, it doesn't always get updated everywhere. So in a registration packet to the district, there's a sign off for basic use of computers. Basically, if they go into a computer lab, they're doing a research project in the library, and they're using school computers, and that the parents sign off that they'll use it appropriately. Then there's the use of personal technology, because now everybody and their brother has a cell phone, right? And will that be done right? And then there's district issued portable computers. So if you can see here, we listed 7315R, 7315F goes with the policy. There's a regulation and a form. Same thing for 16. The old one was 7314, which I think we got rid of all the 14 references, and we fixed it to 15 and 16. So I'm working with Jane on what is being signed when people pick up iPads, number one. Number two, what do we need to have legally them to sign off on for basically not so much being responsible for the device, but for how they use the device. And the one good thing is that when you go through a school district, it's filtered quite heavily, and there is tracking, and there are warnings and emails that get sent to the technology department when someone is trying to access a site they shouldn't. So we usually clamp down on that pretty well. So this is another kind of throw it out there that will probably be streamlining the forms. We think what we're gonna do is for the registration packet, and when anyone new to the district, and we did this a long time ago when we started with computer labs, that'll stay in the registration packet, so we touch everyone about general use of computers in the school. What we will then come up with is a policy that goes with the form for the personal use, which will cover their cell phones as well as the devices we're giving them, which in this district is iPads, not Chromebooks. So we're trying to clean this up because all it takes is one incident, right? And when you don't have your policies in a row, that's how you can get in trouble. So we've got it cleaned up to the 2. 15 is the computer use in the school, and 16 will be personal use technology. And we'll be giving you more drafts of that to see how we'll go and how we'll move forward. These were, again, from Erie 1, so they're not like we pulled these things out of a hat. But Erie 1 policy is what they say best practice for the state. And then obviously by region, by school district, you can tweak them if you want. It's easy just to, boilerplate it, stamp it, and say, yes, we'll take this our new policy. But then people don't tend to read them and dig into them, and then there's something in there like deliberately indifferent that nobody caught, and then you're like, well, what does that mean, right? So, so that's the process we're working through. It'll be the forms that parents and students, AKA both, would sign off on, and then matching them to our policies. So when you look at those, the policies we feel will be strong, and there probably won't be more than a few tweaks of verbiage. But what we'll do is streamline and clearly state on the form, this is about personal use devices and devices that are given to you by the school district. This one, the other one is going to be for hardwired to the wall computers. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So the next update is Wright Avenue. And this week, through a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting, Tony set up, Mr. Montaro, Mr. Kennedy, myself, we had the owner, who was Mark, Ed, and Mr. Zimmerman, I was gonna say his owner, Mr. Zimmerman there. And it became a little bit clearer what they're asking. So the reason there's no bid to buy Wright Avenue is nobody has an intention to own it. What they would like to do is just take a part of it that they need and make it wetlands, so it's unusable, and take that unusable that's currently usable and buildable, right? But they're gonna make it into wetland, so that they can now take that 2 acres, 3 acres, 4 acres, whatever it ends up being, and say, you can have it for behind your business. We could build houses on this lot now because we have another acre that we can take these trees down. So they're not interested in the whole plot, it doesn't sound like. And if you remember the picture I sent you, there was like 2 or 3 buildable spots to the left and then one way down on the right. The right one is the one that they have some interest in. So basically what happens then, they asked for permission to have the EEOC, DEC, come in and count trees to first make sure that it's still the way the picture was, which was old. And then they're going to, after that, come with the results and say if it would even work or not. Because what used to be buildable 10 years ago might not be buildable anymore, it could be a swamp. And you can't make something that's a wetlands now into new wetlands because they're gonna say, no, this is already a swamp. But where it gets into legal costs for us is that we're basically devaluing the property. So whenever you want to build in an area that's wetlands, you have to offset it with some things that aren't wetlands. And we're basically taking the buildable area for in the future, if someone wanted to buy it and build something there, or the school district wanted to put a school there, you're gonna be limited in the size because you're gonna be too close to wetlands, so there's not enough buildable area. So we left the meeting with them asking us, is it okay for them to pay and get the trees counted and resurveyed as far as what's wetlands, what's buildable? And I said I would take that to the board. The next step is if everything stayed the same and they say, we want this bit of property, nobody has an interest in buying it. They just want us to devalue it and turn it into more wetlands. So he understood that these were probably not going to be good budget years going forward. And any legal work that I do adds up quickly to do this. I do not know yet if, and I didn't want to spend the money to find out yet, if by devaluing the land, the voters have to approve that or not. Because it's currently this and it's, and then we would have to also get an assessment before we could do anything. And he understood that it's not going to be a quick process. And if it involved a vote, it probably wouldn't happen until May. And we all know what happened with last year's school board vote in May, which ended up being June. So I said, I don't know if you have a timeline for this, but nothing's going to move real fast when you're dealing with the school district and property. So I'll let Matthew and Tony kind of chime in on what I maybe missed in summary.
No, I think you were pretty much spot on from just looking through the notes that I took. My thing is, I would be fine with them, seeing what, what's wetlands, what's not. My only thing is, it's not my land, it's not Colleen's land, it's not any of our land, it's the taxpayers' land. So really, it's not up to us when it's all said and done. It would be up to them. My guess would be in a vote. So, that's kind of where I'm at. And I know Mr. Montero has thoughts about valuation.
Yeah, I mean, the land definitely has value. There's value too, because they want it. They want it for a specific reason, so.
My concern would be if you let those people in there and they evaluate it as is and say now that 75% of the land is wetland and the value of the property goes down for our ability to sell it. Because right now we have it as is. You let those people in there to assess what's wetlands.
I think you would have to anyways. I think what was every 10, there was a certain time
We're
frame
getting
you had to do it no
where
matter
before
what.
we sell it, they'd have to do it again. So it's kind of like when you do the home warranty in a house, you know what I mean? Before the sale would be final, they'd want to make sure, with something
I
like
think
that.
that's gonna happen no matter what, whether it's us selling now, later.
So there's no harm and no cost to letting them go in and count trees. But if the end result of the board is like, well, we're not sure we're gonna do anything with it anyways, for no return value to the district, except devaluing the property value, is it worth their time, I guess is what I'm saying.
There's a cost associated for it.
Honestly, with the way that the budget years may be coming up, I would feel silly putting it out to a vote to the community, asking them to do this and not have the school district get any money back. I just feel like they'll just laugh. Really, you wanna not even sell it or get any money out of it or anything,
Yeah.
They know what the budget years will be like.
Well,
too.
so the people who want it have the story that we're gonna build a bigger company, so we'll bring more jobs in. If there's a good chunk of land and we can then expand where we're building houses. you know what I mean, you could bring in some more new land, but that's if, you know, that's not what they're using it for.
I'm just curious, I mean, it was Ascension before, and Ascension sold and moved up, right? I mean, is whoever pitching this same chunk of land keep saying that, oh, you could just go and buy school district wetlands and, or get to wetlands so you can expand and just be duped themselves into using this space that's there? I mean, if we reject this now, let's just say they're gonna not move and someone else be told the same thing and we might get come and ask the same thing 2-3 years from now again. Like, it just seems like this is two
So
businesses
that's a
in quick
nice-
succession.
That's a nice view of the area. And
It's
you can-
36 acres that we own.
It's 36 acres, it's a big chunk. If you move your mouse to the left, you can kind of see a flat area, buildable. Behind it, there's two more. One there, and one above it. There's like two, see there's a little bit of grass in between, it's kind of two areas. And then way over on the right, if you zoom back out, that's the piece they kind of want over there in that corner, you know. So there's a lot of, you know, I think anyone looking at it who doesn't know this would say, yeah, there's gonna be a lot of wetlands in the middle there. But on the overall property, Mr. Montoro was explaining to them that, you know, once that piece becomes wetlands, now you might have to not be able to use one of your buildable pieces to maintain a buffer to the wetland.
Yeah, we need land to mitigate, to do the same thing. We have areas that we could mitigate. I suggested, I didn't think it was Ducks Unlimited, but there's a company that specifically works in a couple states that helps cities plan like how to do this on a larger scope. So I don't know how they're figuring out like this is the best spot. I mean, I don't know if you zoom out more, like are there other areas they could leverage? I mean,
Well, I think they mentioned that the city does own some, but they don't really want to use that if they don't have to, and that wasn't really a great answer, because that's,
Yeah.
I mean, they
could
did
do
write
their
that
own
note
mitigation.
down.
Yeah.
Whether it was the city or the
Because-
PUC that said that.
But they should go city anyway, because as we always say, the city does with, like, the city doesn't have to vote. The council
Yeah.
does. You know what I mean? So they just vote. You know what I mean?
So do you want me to say, go ahead, count 36 acres of trees and get back to us? Or do you want to say, you can count 36 acres of trees, but if we have to put it for a vote and we're going to just devalue property, the board may afterwards decide not to do that. Which I think is being honest.
I guess we have some folks on the phone there. We can see what they
Just-
think about
I have a question about the land, and we might have already talked about this before. So how long have we owned it? Or how long have we had it?
Older than me.
Okay.
That's
And-
super old.
I didn't say that. And what would we sell it for today if someone wanted the whole land?
What was it?
It's in my paper, 69,000,
I think it was more than that.
No,
I think it was Zimmerman was
80.
80.
80, it's like a 360.
Yeah, it was-
Yeah,
I was gonna say it was-
369,000.
Okay. So I guess if I mean, I think if we proceed, we obviously have to give them the disclaimer of like, this may not be a go, and let them decide that. But would it also be of benefit for us to know, like, if they did section off this piece as wetland, how close or how far away do we have to stay from it to still build on the rest of it? You know what I mean? Because
So they're not gonna pay for that, that's something that we have to send in there, and depending on what we wanna do, because there could be a point where we say, we need some of this wetland. City, give us some unbuildable land somewhere that you have, you know, so we don't wanna, you know, if anyone bought it or wanted to use it, that's gonna be the deal down the road, but I can spend a little money with legal to get you an answer to what you're asking about now.
well, okay. I mean, I don't really want to spend any money right now. So that's kind of where I'm at. I just, in thinking about it for as long as we've had it and nobody's shown interest in it, and I know we're kind of keeping it in our pocket for those what if days. I mean, do you really foresee us needing to build another school in the next 10 years? I don't know. So
Yeah,
I
well,
just don't.
it's interesting because as I drive around town, I see, there's gonna be a lot of houses on Meadow Drive. Then they're squeezing them in down by that golf course on Walk Road, right? Down everywhere they can where there's buildable. There's like 3 new houses there since last. And there's supposed to be a development on the other side of the golf course on Walk Road, which I don't know where that's gonna be, but that would be 150 to 300, smaller houses. So, at one time we had schools at the seams, now I'm closing schools, but everything's a pendulum. And it might not be in, our short lifetime left in the district, but in 25, 30 years out, it could be that, we don't have enough room. And then we got to add on to schools, or at that point, like a Gilmore became unfixable because of the different levels, and it was too much to make it ADA compliant. And, I don't know that that would happen with anything maybe but Spruce at this point, but there's a lot of what ifs in this question, so we can get rid of it, and then we just tear down a school like, say, Spruce, and build a new school on that property, which then you don't have a school for a while you're doing that. But I don't know that we need the property. And to be honest, I did look into these at one point, and I think residents who owned it left them to the school district in their will. So that's how we acquired this property, the Zimmerman Streets, the Walk Road, and the Wright Avenue. So I can go back and get it. They're written in ink and pen and yellow paper, back in the 1800s. So they've had these properties for a long time. Some of them were willed to the district. Not that it says you can't do that, you can't sell it or can't, use it, but that's how we got it, so.
Okay.
So the other angle to this though, too, and I don't know, like the whole using it for cross country or something of that nature, because there are tracks on there, and that's one of our problems. We don't have anywhere in the community for kids to participate in that. So,
I mean, it could be used for things besides the building.
right.
Yes, and I did tell you once there was some talk about one of the organizations wanting to buy it for soccer field and see what they could do with it. But that involved the Army Corps of Engineers and it somehow didn't continue. But the question today is, do we want to investigate this property a little bit? What is it worth now? How much is still wetlands? Those are the things they're talking about.
I think that before the last time we spoke about this, I felt like there was a general consensus to get an updated assessment and also to consider reassessing other properties that had gone over 10 years.
Yeah, so I do know Tony looked into that one company.
Yeah, there's an appraiser we could contract with. It'd be like $3,000.
Yeah.
And
so we can move forward on that for about 3,000.
okay. And then beyond that, I guess my fuzzy area is they don't want to purchase this, correct? They want it to stay in our name.
Correct.
So then if we're devaluing and let's say everybody's happy that we're going to do this, and if it has to go to vote and somehow or another the city agrees, yes, we can do this, the pluses outweigh the deltas, what do we stand to gain out of this? I know originally I proposed maybe like a quid pro quo of a donation somehow or some sort of contribution. Is that still a viable possibility, or is that just too far out of conceptualization?
Well, I don't know that you can contractually set something up,
Yeah.
right? It would have to be a donation. And when I did send that to Mr. Zimmerman, he said it was, when he referred to that, it was a different case or scenario. I mentioned to the owner of the company that has that business now, I said, you could buy Zimmerman Street for 80,000, a little less than 2 brand new Cadillac Escalades, And then you can turn it into all wetlands if you want and build wherever you want. And, Mr. Zimmerman said, well, we were kind of staying away from Zimmerman Street, because 80,000 isn't a lot if you own a business, right? You want to expand, I'm assuming, then you own something. We want to stay away from Zimmerman Street because the buildable property on Zimmerman Street is street frontage. So there could be something that wants to go in there at some point. So the city wasn't pointing him towards Zimmerman Street, which is a much less cost and probably attainable property. They're pushing them here, and they're, coming up with the piece that we've all talked about, that it's currently no street access, but I have to believe that the Meadow Drive extension was wetlands at 1.2, and
All those people that bought those houses on the other side were all told they will never build
yeah,
on Meadow.
it's wetlands. And so things
They were
change
all
over
told
time,
that.
so whatever they're telling us now isn't gonna hold, And Krista, I don't know how I would do this, so we're gonna take it for a vote and say we wanna devalue the property, but we're gonna get 150,000 in, iPads, how is that? You know what I mean? You start crossing lines,
Yeah, it's too much. It's a lot of gray area.
Mm-hmm.
Eric? Go ahead.
Eric, any comment?
I'm sorry, it's the volume for me for the people that are in attendance is super hard to hear. But I mean, I mean, you guys know what I'm going to say about it. I don't, not to rehash some things from months ago, but I don't like the idea of us being on, the losing end of deals, especially when we're dealing with like the taxpayer money and things like that, and the property. And, a few months ago, and, we do these tax abatements, it's like, it's all this stuff that could pay off for the district in the long run and things like that. I feel like this is another one of those scenarios. Like, I guess, maybe they build $1 million business and the tax revenue just comes in and it's a huge benefit for us and all that. But I don't think that's likely. I think what is likely is that we have land that could benefit other people, and they're looking to take a shot at getting it for nothing, for no financial burden or little financial burden to them, and then a devalued property for us. And I just don't like the precedent of being on these what I perceive as like a losing end of these deals. And they haven't happened that often in the couple of years I've been on the board, but lately they seem to be happening. And so I would be against it, unless, like Krista said, there was some type of like a donation or something where there was a benefit. But Greg, I agree with you when you say that's a really gray area. Probably not something we really want to start getting into, these deals or something like that unofficially. So I would be against it. But yeah.
Well, so you're not changing title of the property. So how can you say, basically it's gonna be on paper that it's more wetland, right? So
Right.
there's really nothing to sort of say, I did anything for them, right? I mean, how do I know you're doing it for Ascension, or that guy sells it to the next guy? So by the time it got worked out, I don't know that I'd have a legal foot to stand on if they backed out.
Right.
Because we would just vote to say, let's devalue the land. So not sell it or not, you couldn't say, it's a legal question, I have to ask. So I say, are we gonna tell the voters, we'll devalue this land, and only if somebody miraculously donates, X amount of money or X amount of iPads, like
At that point, just pay for the land.
Right.
yeah. I said, make me an offer on Zimmerman. It's listed at 80, but that doesn't mean I'll take 80, right?
Put it up for, we can put it to the voters for whatever the month they.
Yeah. So I think I'm hearing, don't count trees, or we're done. But we'll still get it assessed, or tell them maybe after we get it assessed and we find out if it's down or went up or whatever. What do you want to do?
So is that assessment just this property or is it everything?
I could talk to the appraiser, and I gave him an idea of what.
When is
he's looking
you
at.
said it's soon mandated though, that we have to assess it every 10 years. No?
I'm not as familiar as these.
No, there's, at some point, you're gonna have to prove the wealth when you sell it. And if you like last appraised your house 10 years ago, they're gonna say, well, what is it worth today? And did you remodel or did it go down the tubes, right? And a piece of land, I'm not as familiar, but I can ask that question. You know, I don't know if it's 10 years or 20 years or.
Land is something that typically always holds its value, if not gets more valuable. So that $360,000 property could be worth more, or, you know, it's not gonna go down.
No.
So, I mean, between that and this building, I believe they're the only two, other than Zimmerman, on the market, right? The Walk Road property isn't on the market, right?
No, we don't know walk
I
around.
thought, okay.
We're down to this building, Zimmerman and Wright Avenue.
Yeah, so if we get the three remaining reassessed and put them up, I mean, we can decide what to do, but put them back up.
So I
for a
can
vote.
tell them we're
In
going
May.
to move along to try and get it assessed quickly to see what the value actually is before you reassess. If he wants to count in the meantime with no promise of anything, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's not gonna cost us and we did nothing to come of it. I don't see a problem with the county.
Is there any legal issue with someone being on our property? Are we open to any liability counting if we're not? You know,
Well, it's
like
like
we're
the
giving
Audubon.
permission to
I don't
allow them
know,
on the property.
yeah.
That on that is, I mean, I'm assuming if they give us some type of notice, I mean, we have insurance. So,
All right.
I suppose if somebody got hurt in the neighbor properties, it could be an issue.
So is everyone good with doing the reassessment piece? Because there is a cost associated.
Yeah, we'll bring that to the next meeting.
I can talk to the appraiser and get like the exact
Okay.
amount of what it would cost
And
to.
I'll contact them and say, this is what we're doing. We're gonna reassess it so we know what we're talking about. Okay? All right, thought exchange, Mr. Halesko, and 5 minutes or less.
Okay, here we go. As we told you, we ran an exchange both for parents and our teachers in the district. The question for the parents that we reshaped after discussing this with you was moving from a hybrid to a fully remote, if needed, will bring new concerns. What are your thoughts on future needs? So I put this together in a PowerPoint. The copy that Mr. Waitilla has also has a link on the last page that we can share digitally with you. When you click on the link, this becomes live. You actually go into the exchange, and to a limited degree, you can start to move in and see some more of the information that you might be more interested in. And let me just share the screen. Okay. So number of participants, we had 225 participants, 332 thoughts, 8,000 plus ratings. And I'm just gonna move through these quickly. This next slide gives the demographics. We had the high school had the largest percentage of participation from parents at 31%. That was followed up by MTI, and the remainder of the buildings are pretty evenly distributed. The word wall here, I'll just let you look at this. This is not live because again, I put this into a PowerPoint so you could have it in your possession when you look at this. And some of the top key thoughts here.
Well, just tell them go back to the word wall. So the bigger the word, the more times people used it in an account. So safety came up, safe, everyone, include everybody. So, but these were like, out of all the words, these kept falling into people's thoughts.
Correct. So top 3 thoughts, teachers, this was great to hear. The teachers have been amazing, thank you. You can see the rating that it received. Out of 317, it was the number 1. There was 13 people. I know that teachers are doing 3 times the the work, even if my child isn't getting daily interaction. I appreciate all of the work they are doing. Another very positive thought. The third one, there should be a remote teacher who manages the remote kids 5 days a week. The remote kids should have more access to their teacher. The teachers have too much on their plate. That was number 3. This is another part of the thought exchange. It just shows the various areas that kept coming up repeatedly and the words that go with it. So you can see safety was the highest bar in this thought exchange, followed by flexibility, fully remote, lessons, teach, instruction, daily scheduling, learning, and work with parents. Some of the themes about safety: we want everyone to be safe and healthy. That is important for all. That had a 4.2 rating. A number of people rated that thought. Followed up by, I think the safety of everyone is the most important thing. Again, that was 4.2. And the third was safety should be the first priority. That was 4.1. Additional thoughts: flexibility, another theme here. There would have to be flexibility for parents and teachers. That was a 4.1. We all have to be flexible, 4.1. Mr. Waitilla keeps saying this is going to be the year that we all bounce.
Yeah.
And that was followed up by we need flexibility. I think that's true. Every individual that's being hit by this right now, that's the key word, flexibility. And fully remote theme. Top 3 thoughts: there would be a remote teacher who manages the remote kids 5 days a week. The remote kids should have more access to their teacher. The teachers have too much on their plate. That was a 4.3. The next thought of 4.0, very happy about their teacher, excellent communication, and teachers are going above and beyond, have faith, parents, and be supportive and patient. Good to hear. And that was followed up by, I think the teachers are working super hard. I'm sure they'll continue to do a good job if we go fully remote. So that's great to hear from parents in the district here. The next slide here shows differences, and you can see from one extreme to the other, they took a pool of 47 individuals versus 22 that are on different ends of the, I guess, thought or their viewpoint. So you can see on side A, very strong thoughts. Remote learning is not an effective way for education. Remote learning has been challenging. There is minimal communication with the teacher. That was 4.9. You can see people on the opposite end at it as a 1.1. Half days should never be half days. While in hybrid model, these kids are in school 2 days, and half day realistically only has them in their 1 day. Did you want any additional thoughts here?
So a lot of this was timely, right? Because we started parent-teacher conferences, and they need time to do that. And contractually, we're not going to do them all outside the workday, so that's why we get the half days. The remote learning piece is why we're making changes as of November 30th, but I want to get into the COVID yellow, what that might do. But we do have some more contact time with teachers going forward with the hybrid model and the remote model. And then the other side, which is B, is we need to avoid the next wave, keep all the students safe. So they're more the people who want, to make sure we're doing school in an effective, safe way. Winter months, December to February, to go fully remote. Students would feel more comfortable at home with their families than at school, because at school they hate wearing
masks and they don't get to play. Students can learn from home. And then
you guys are split, and obviously we didn't get everybody to put in there, so those numbers are skewed, and the squeaky wheel likes to get some grease, so they're always putting in their comments. But it's true on both sides. I can see both sides of it.
The commonality between the two was we want everyone to be safe and healthy. This is important for all. And the second area that was a commonality between the two A full-time tech support team is needed to help parents, students, and staff with the online education platforms and online devices, iPads. There is minimal support from staff members who have other responsibilities. Students, staff, and families deserve professional educational tech support. So that was a comment between both sides. Move along to wrap it up here. Some additional, the A to B, side A, in a fully remote world, consistency with timelines would be helpful. Knowing how to structure our time with our other responsibilities will ensure greater success. Last minute add-on assignments will be frustrating. The side A's need to build master schedule earlier in the May, need to build the master schedule early in the winter, staffing projections in the event we return and have to play student catch up in May and June. And side B of this discussion is I can't keep up with the seesaw assignments. Can teachers send less items? And the commonality with these sides is there would have to be flexibility for parents and teachers. And also, I think the teachers are doing their best. And we're wrapping, we're getting near the end. Do you want me to keep going through these commonalities or?
Do one more, and then I'll
Okay.
wrap it in.
So side A, again, differences is my son is a hybrid and in kindergarten. If we go fully remote, I don't feel like he will be getting the right teaching and experience he needs to learn. It's important because kindergarten is where you start learning the basics needed for your first grade and up. If you're not getting it, you will risk struggling. The other thought was, I think an option for care for families who cannot remote work is important. If parents can't remote work, there needs to be some kind of care facility that could send their kids to. Parents might need help locating. Side B, obviously we didn't have enough to get the extreme here, but the commonality, I think teachers are doing their best and there would have to be flexibility, a common theme. And this is the interactive link when we share this with you digitally. When you click on this link, it will take you actually into the real thought exchange, and you will have the opportunity to dive in deeper, a little deeper, and see what are the thoughts. You might want to go down 20 deep and see what was, thought exchange number 20 and what was its rating. So I'll just click on one of these here, the top thoughts. I'll make this a little larger here. And you can see it gives you much more than what we just briefly went over. So you can dig much deeper. And I'm going to go back here. So you have top thoughts, you have themes, you have theme tiles. I'll show this. This is kind of neat, the theme tiles. You can see when I hover my mouse over one of these areas, it will tell you there was 40 total thoughts that fell into the safety area. And 4.2 was the star score. When I click on that, you can see the various thoughts that were shared. We want everyone to be safe and healthy. Safety should be the first priority. There are numerous staff and children attached to each building in the district. Everyone in each building should be able to feel safe. So again, each one of these tiles, you can hover over, get more information, and you can see clearly what people are pushing in and the ratings that are associated with them. Is there any of these other ones, Mr. Whitesell, you wanted me to?
No, because I want to cover it, I think, and taking that result for if we go fully remote and where we are with yellow before forward.
Right.
So as the board knows, we've been working on enhancing remote instruction for the kids who are full remote and hybrid mode, where they're going to have access daily to ELA and math professionals, as well as the teachers. We're getting some more time to make better quality and enhancements to the reading lessons and that type of thing. So we have a plan that's going to already starting at NTI. The rest of the buildings K3 have it ready to go November 30th. So I think these parents who say we need more contact time with teachers will be happy to see that they're going to get that on a daily basis, especially K3. Today, we went yellow, and under yellow with the governor, you can stay open, but you have 2 weeks to test 20% of your in-person population. and your average has to be under the county or the yellow designation percentage to show that you're not, it's not higher or at the same because it's not coming from the school. So, with that said, we did get the nasal swab test from the Department of Health. 3 with a Q-tip, 3 with a Q-tip, I think, and then you put it in the card. In 10 to 15 minutes, you have results. Chris Klester was nice enough this afternoon to get me the by building, because you could have a building that's high, and that would be then forced to close, but other buildings might have low COVID rate, and they can stay open. So for example, I'll go from high to low. At Drake, for 20% staff, we need 8.5, so 9 staff members to test. And for students, we need 50 to meet the 20%. At the high school, we need, that's low, high now is the high school, we need 34 staff members to test and 175 students to test in the next 2 weeks. So Mr. Tambroni and I have worked with the Department of Health. We have some nurses from one of the agencies, and we're offering some overtime to our nurses on staff to start this testing as early as next Wednesday when we're closed, but we'll make appointments for people to come in and get those tests. And right now we have to be under like a 4.5%, because that's why we're yellow, because we went up and we're higher in this section. Plus we're bordering the Tonawandas and the Grand Islands and stuff that are higher in 5 and 6%. So I feel that from the first wave of comments on Facebook today, there will be some parents who will sign the permission slip for their child to be tested and make an appointment. If we don't get them at the end of the 2-week period, which is 2 weeks from today when it's announced, we would have to close and go fully remote. If we do the testing and we're lower, we're done so long as we're in yellow, because we proved that it wasn't because of the school that this rate went up. So that's moving forward into that. If we go remote because the county becomes orange, and we stay there for a while, or it's going to be closed until there's a vaccine, we have a number of issues. First of all, we go back to the yellow zone, right? We're yellow, but a lot of Erie County's orange already, right? So in doing a quick look this afternoon, we have 123 staff members that live in the orange zone. And that's not to say that they all are going to have childcare issues or things like that, but those schools are closed after Friday. And if I stay open with the yellow and testing, we could have a problem with subs or family, requests for family leaves and that type of thing. We have 89 staff members that live in North Tonawanda, teachers. 12 are in yellow zones that don't live in NT, and 55 are in no color at all, so they're farther north in Niagara County. Out of our teaching aides, there are 60 teacher aides in the district. 31 are special ed, 29 are general building aides or library aides. There's 3 of them in that, not 29 that are building aides. So we're looking at that as well, because in a fully remote model, the aides required would be for special ed. And last time we paid everybody when we went into this zone. But as Mr. Montaro would like me to mention and point out too, is that there's been some talk, and this is where legislation comes in, that they don't want to pay us for our transportation aid because we weren't transporting kids during that time. So there's some legislation that would get them to allow that again, but that would be a big hit to us, because that's basically March through June. And that'll affect us in this coming budget if we don't get that aid. So there's a lot of numbers, there's a lot of testing, there's a lot of logistics to this. There's a lot of comments on Facebook about, I won't test my kid, you can't make me. And then later on it said, well, but if you don't get the 20%, can you let us know? Because then maybe I'd let my kid get tested, because I don't want school to. So they don't want school to close, but they don't want to do it. You know what I mean? They don't want to come for the test. So we're gonna see what happens starting next week.
Can I just ask a really simple about the test?
Yes,
So this is a swab, this is just a cotton swab that's just gonna go in the nasal.
yes. It's
So
like
it's
if
not
you were
nasal
cleaning your
pharyngeal.
ear, cleaning your,
Okay.
yes.
No, because that is, I mean, people are hearing horror stories and I've been
Well,
through it. They do go all the way up there,
yeah.
but if these are simpler, I
We
mean,
put the video.
I do that every single day.
Right.
We put the video in Facebook today so people could see the demonstration of it. And it's literally done in less than 3 seconds.
Okay,
And it's
so
in
it's
the
less
car.
invasive.
Yeah, it's not a very invasive.
Okay.
But it's enough for them to say, we did our testing and we did our due diligence
Oh, I'm not saying it's not gonna be accurate. I
Yeah.
just want people that are gonna be tested knowing that it's not the horror stories that you hear of the most invasive one.
So the COVID tests are coming. We are approved to be a testing site, which was hurdle number 1. Hurdle number 2 was getting the test, and we have to have the protocol on how you're gonna do that. So we're gonna finalize that tomorrow. They told me if that's approved, which it should be because we've been working with them, I can go to Lockport Friday and pick up the tests, and then we'll have them to start next week. We're going to mail the permission slips to every household, as well as start sending them home with the kids in their book bags who are here on Thursday and Friday, and then the Monday, Tuesday as well, seeing how many we get back. And it looks like our nurses are responding positively, just came in. So that means we'll have more nurses, which means more stations, which means we can do more tests in less amount of days, because we can have more appointments set up. So we know that Wednesday before Thanksgiving and Friday after Thanksgiving will be hard for parents, but we're hoping that we get a bulk of it done then. And then we'll have to look to see what hours, we might do something like a 3 to 6 after school hours where parents could bring their kids. We will not be just pulling them out of a classroom and doing it in the nurse's office. I think the best way to do that, and so parents know, some early comments were, you know, custody battles, and I don't want my kid tested, but my husband does, and what am I gonna do, and how can you guarantee me he won't get tested? The answer is we're not gonna test unless you make an appointment. And if you make an appointment, you're gonna have the permission slip signed. Permission slip is signed against who's supposed to sign it in the offices of the school before they come over. So there should be enough checks and balances in there, so that doesn't happen. But questions?
So I guess realistically, I mean, how do you anticipate us, you know, being in person past December 1st?
I think we will have 20% at a lower rate to stay open. November 30th week, you know, that's the week, because we have until December 3rd or 4th to have the test done by. So we'll be open till then.
That's under yellow. I mean,
Yeah.
but it's game over if we get moved to orange.
Yeah, so if he comes on next Wednesday, and says new zones and Niagara County's orange, he doesn't care about my test anymore, he's gonna close it.
Yeah, I just think that's really important that we, you know, make parents know that, yes, we could pass this, but he could instantly squash it next week.
Yeah, I kind of explained it, I'll explain it again tonight, we'll get some things posted as well. But, yeah, we'll see, because it's high, there's high rates in, like, just across the canal in Tonawanda is 6 something. So, other questions or comments? I know Eric was watching Facebook Live this afternoon. Any comments from Facebook Live, Eric?
Yeah, again, sorry if I say something that you covered, it's hard to hear, but no, I mean, you covered everything in the Facebook Live and then some from an information standpoint. This is, I thought, the situation that we're starting to head into now was going to happen, you know, maybe a month or 6 weeks ago. So obviously we got as far as we did because everyone worked really hard to keep it safe and to keep the numbers low. But we're attached to Erie County by, you know, obviously just the bridge, and you know, the numbers are up in North Tonawanda. I know there's from personal experience, I can definitely tell you that the numbers are definitely increasing from the calls we go on and things like that. So I don't know. I mean, it's, we're
Well,
thought,
the other thing we're seeing too is in addition to that, so as that goes up, that's my son, or that's my husband, or that's my wife. And so then the people in the house are being quarantined, which means two things. Maybe less children are coming because they're being quarantined, but maybe less staff can come because they have to quarantine until they get the test result, right? So I'm a little bit worried, to Zach's point, that we do the testing and I have so many outside factors of quarantining and symptoms and testing that we don't have the staff to stay open. So it's going to be a balancing act as we go forward between testing and people staying healthy.
I just want to ask just one question, just kind of for myself. You said you can pick up the rapid testing kits, right?
Yes.
And so when will we start that? I know the permission slips and all that, but when's like a reasonable timeline? Like Monday we'll start in-person testing, or next?
Well, because we have to get the permission slips back and we're mailing them to make sure every household gets them that has an in-person student, our first day that we're going to schedule for is Wednesday next week. We would probably do Wednesday and Friday, and then look to do Monday and Tuesday the following week, which is November 30th and December 1st.
Okay, and where did you get the tests from? Are we getting them from the county health department?
The Niagara County Department of Health saw them, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
He had them. He was very reluctant to give them up at first. But there was miscommunication. He didn't want us to use them for kids that got sent to the nurse's office that were feeling sick, because if you get a positive on this test and you're already showing symptoms, they say you have to go get a more thorough test. So, but when we kind of got to his head that we're testing people who are coming to work without temperatures and not symptoms, we want to make sure they're not asymptomatic carrying the disease. Then he said, oh, okay, that's a different story. He has enough for all the schools in Niagara County to do 20% if need be, but it's a one-time shot. Okay, if the governor changes the rules and says, North Tonawanda, you have to retest, I don't know that I have those tests to retest, after like say 3 weeks, 4 weeks down the road. Dan Stapleton said he's had orders in for over 4 weeks and he hasn't gotten anything.
So we don't have to pay for them.
Well, you pay for them through your Niagara County taxes,
Okay,
but
that's
yes,
good.
we're not
Yeah.
paying them a bill now to get them.
But we pay the nurses,
We will be paying the agency nurses and we will be paying our nurses overtime because those are days off for them. The Wednesday and the Friday.
So what's our circuit breaker light switch look like? We have to flip to remote, like how quickly, what is the learning disruption if, next week, Wednesday, we go orange? Are the kids still gonna be like no interruption into their learning, or do we have to give them all new schedules from that point on?
No, that's the beauty of not having a lot of things that people are asking for, is that each building has a plan. K through 3, they will do daily 60-minute ELA lessons, 60 to 90 minutes, and then a math lesson for 45 to 60 minutes, with breakout time and work in that time. They'll get their daily special that's scheduled on a 6-day cycle. We're going to follow the 6-day cycle. Katie's here, I know, but that's basically what the principals and I worked on 2-3 weeks ago to get ready for this. And at the middle school, they followed their schedule and they've been remote without a glitch going forward.
Yeah, and all of our special areas, related services, remedial services will transfer right into a fully remote model. So there wouldn't be gaps within any of the mandated services that we're providing.
I just want people to understand that this is different than March.
Yeah.
It's way
Yeah,
different. The thing we can't control though is that, okay, you're fully remote and you're offering teaching to follow the schedule, but my child has to go to grandma's and wherever, and she's not gonna make them do it. So these things will then be online for them to access later, and there'll be lessons, but there will be live teaching for those people who can access it at that time, which is a huge difference from March.
Yeah, I mean, I might be a little bit different here, but I did my master's degree fully online. And, you know, I had access to the entire course essentially from week one for the most part, with the exception of the tests or quizzes related to that week, because they went live on that actual week.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm sure, I don't want to say, remote learning is definitely not for everyone, and I definitely wouldn't say it's for our younger students. But if perhaps we could get advanced content
Well,
to our
just-
older students sooner, so that maybe they could work ahead in that situation.
And so you know, the planning doesn't stop, right? So we came up with a plan too, that if this 20% testing has to get redone and there aren't good tests, that we would maybe say, we're only gonna test our K-3 buildings, so they can stay open in the hybrid model and move more to a secondary or the intermediate building as well, depending on how many tests were available to us, and then move the middle school and high school into a remote like you're talking about, based on that, because I think everyone would agree it's a little harder for a kindergartner to learn through a computer than it might be for a
Oh,
senior.
I mean, that, I would agree with that focus, is keeping our youngest students in any of our buildings as long as we safely possibly can.
So there's a lot of what ifs, what happens before I leave today, probably change again. And tomorrow morning will be something different again, but, I think we're well positioned for the best remote option coming. We hope to stay in remote. We hope to be in remote and enhance it for those kids who are full or hybrid, and enhance the remote for those kids who are in remote. We have that plan worked out. I think parents will be happy with the access and time they can get with a live teacher. So, because the next thing we're gonna be talking about is there's a virus or there's a vaccine for the virus, and do you have to take it? Do you not have to take it? Do you have to take 2 doses? Do you have to take 1 dose? What, you know, all that's gonna be the next thing. And people are optimistic that you won't have to take the vaccine for the virus. But as we know in schools, he mandated all the vaccines, right, to come to public school. So yeah, you don't have to get it, but then you can't come to school. So that'll be interesting. And plus, can you make adults get it? And will our teachers have to get it? Will our student teachers have to get it? Will our bus drivers have to get it? Like, there's a lot of questions, and I don't think we're at the top of the list to get it. You know, probably nursing, doctors, police, you know, would be the first in line. So there's a lot of questions coming.
Greg, I had a question about the possibility, because I'm not as optimistic. I think we're gonna bounce right to yellow or orange. I really do. Just from what I've been seeing around town, so to speak. So I think it's great that we're positive, and I do appreciate everyone's efforts, but that's not what I'm seeing on the ground. And I'm sure you guys are perhaps maybe catching glimpses of that too. If we have to move fully remote, and one of the more popular responses that was coming back theme-wise was more tech support. Is there a way, or maybe can you give a little bit of insight as to the possibility of hiring consultant tech people to kind of come in and troubleshoot those IT issues with parents?
Well, we
I
have.
have enough to do today.
Yeah. We have teachers and an email and a phone hotline and everything. I think it's quieted way down from when that started, and even just 2-3 weeks ago. We do, in a world where we're remote, now Mrs. DiVirgilio has more time, right? Now she's running around and doing stuff, helping kids and helping teachers, but if they're all home, there is more time for those calls to help, which is what we were doing in March and that for the secondary students. So I don't know that just because we build the position, the right person's there, because it takes a lot to learn Schoology and to help them with their problem. It's, the easy problems are, I can't get online, or my iPad went dead. That's the easy fix, bring it in, here's a new hotspot. It's when they say, I can't find my student's assignment, the ins and out of really working the program is what they're asking for. And we do have two very skilled people that Mr. Glasgow worked with to answer all those questions now.
Has there been any more investigation into the remoting in on distance learners? As far as taking,
Go a little farther than me.
so if you provide remote access to access someone's device.
Oh, take over their device?
Yeah, so you can kind of internally, do you know what I mean? We talked about it at the last meeting.
Yeah, with the iPad program, I think they're working on that, right, Mr. House?
They're looking at it.
Yeah, they haven't gotten there yet, but that's something that we hope to get to.
They've been, with the teachers, I know more and more on Microsoft Teams, more staff members I'm speaking right now. I'm not referring to the parent end of this at all, but I think our teachers are getting more acclimated and able to participate in staff development and learn how to troubleshoot and help their own students more so. As far as the parents go, we did designate an email specifically that feeds into Mr. Breed, Mrs. Steve Virgilio, Mr. Summer, and I'll check this tomorrow to make sure where we're at. But last I heard, that end was quieting down significantly. But I'm sure you're right, Krista. If we did have to go fully remote, there's probably going to be a bit of a wave, with tech support, just because the advantage right now, at least in hybrid, you have a group of students that are in school. And I watched one of the teachers at Mr. Sabo, who did an absolutely amazing job the other day. He was live streaming. He had students engaged in the lesson outside. One kid saying their microphone wasn't working. Another kid needed help in the corner. This guy's on a different stratosphere as far as being able to do this. And he did a great job. But so we do have some people like him, Brett, Bill. Katie's been pushing Steve into the classrooms to work with the teachers on a set rotation. So we've made a lot of steps to try and support our staff, but there's always more.
Yeah, I think a big piece of it was teacher error user, because they were learning it new this year as well. And now that they've got a routine, a lot of those calls from parents they know what to look for. They know where the teachers are putting it. So, sadly, and maybe it took us 2 or 3 months, but I think that's where we are now. Everyone's got used to it. So I think we'll be fine. But if we see that upticks, there would be people in the district that we could probably tap on who would have a little bit more free time in a full remote model that they're not teaching or doing that. So we'll keep that on the radar.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And if the learning curve is I hate to minimize, but if the learning curve is only 2 to 3 months, that's pretty darn good to get up to speed on.
Yeah, I haven't gotten a phone call at my level, and I was getting them in September and October, so I haven't had one in probably a month.
They're trying. Everyone's trying.
I know.
They're learning.
Well, and that was Facebook comments too. They'd say, I can't get on, I don't know this, and Schoology's not working, and that's not what they're talking about anymore. So I think they figured it out. And sometimes we would call, and the child knew what to do, but was playing, I don't know what to do. So, it wasn't as bad as.
They get it paid.
Yeah. They told mom, I got kicked out, and they didn't get kicked out. They shut it off, so there's some of that going on too.
A lot of cartoons about that.
Yeah. So, but I think as far as real technical support, we would be well suited to help any family that needed it. All right, you guys can stay and talk because I want you to do that, but I really want to get this interpreter going on Facebook Live. Or you could join Facebook Live and ask me your questions with Facebook Live, and I'll answer Krista and Eric and everybody on Facebook Live. So Any major questions or concerns you want me to be aware of going into Thanksgiving week and testing? I do have some good news in executive session front that I'll put in my Friday message. You'll be happy with. So watch that. There'll be some good news.
Yeah, wait.
Well, we didn't have an executive session and it's hard to do it hybrid. So, and it's not done yet, but I think it's heading in a very good direction. So when you read it Friday, it still won't be done, but you'll have some good.
So we just need a motion to adjourn at 7:27.
So moved.
In a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion carries.
Thank you guys for zooming in. We actually did a hybrid class today. You know, we were in person and live, so, you know, we practiced what we preached.